So just to give you a bit of a story on why I'm terrified of jump scare movies. Number one, I'm a coward. Number two, I go with Mel quite a lot, and she has this habit of holding my hand during the scary bits, like when it feels like a jump scare is coming, and then when the jump scare does come, no matter how predictable that jump scare is, she'll squeeze my hand so hard that it physically hurts me, and I spend the next couple of minutes kind of wincing and holding on to my broken fingers. For a horror movie to be fun, I have to see it on my own. If I go with her, it's just torment.
Put the bunny back in the box.
Starring, amongst others, three names that I'm probably going to mess up. Demian Bashir, Thaisa Farmiga, and Jonas Bloquet. I hope I at least got one of those right. One of them had to be right, surely. Directed by Corin Hardy, off of a screenplay by Gary Dauberman. This is my review of The Nun. So the Conjuring franchise is one that I've only recently watched. I saw the first one quite some time ago, but I watched number 2 and the 2 Annabelle movies in the run-up to this one, just so I was, fully clued in on this universe. And fun little fact, The Conjuring 2, the Enfield Poltergeist house, I lived 5 streets away from that and didn't realise. I was aware of the whole haunting and the whole poltergeist thing as a kid, but I didn't realise I lived so close to it, and I'm glad I didn't, because I would never have slept. But I enjoy this franchise. I think it's fine. I don't think it's anything special. I think the first one was the best one, and the second one was really good as well. It had its moments. And the Annabelle movies, again, they had moments where they were great, but I don't think it's an exceptionally good franchise. But I was still excited for The Nun. I was still excited to find out more of the backstory of the Conjureverse, or whatever they call it now. And that's what The Nun is. The premise of this one is that we find out the history of Valak, the demon who appears as a really terrifying, horrific-looking nun. And to do that, we go back to the 1950s into Romania, and there's a convent where a nun has committed suicide. A priest is sent to investigate with a nun in training, and their job is to find out why this nun committed suicide and to find out whether the grounds of this convent are still holy. Very obvious spoiler alert, they are not. So this is a movie I've got quite a few problems with, but I want to start on what I like first. Let's start with the positives. This movie looks great. Like the setting of Romania and the convent and the sort of creepy woodlands surrounding it, it's gorgeous looking. It really, really sets the tone. It's the kind of place where the slightest shadow is unnerving, where you kind of have to look at everything that's going on. And that convent is actually a really good setting. It looks gothic. There's something very, very creepy about every single room that we see of this place, and that really helps to kind of keep the intrigue up and to kind of keep you on your toes for a lot of this. This film also sounds really good. Whenever the nun appears, I'm not sure if it's every single time, but it's certainly quite a few, there's this creepy music. It's sort of like monks singing, like a really deep church music. And it's so effective at making the nun terrifying. I mean, he doesn't need any help. Like, already terrifying, but just adding this music to it just makes her feel like something of great importance, like something that's very, very ominous and very, very disturbing. That's some of the things I got from this. I was more sort of, I'm not sure if scared's the right word, but kind of intimidated by this nun walking down corridors when that music was set to it. So yeah, perfectly scored, this film. And the performances I quite like as well. Farmiga I've liked since American Horror Story. She's great in that show. I think she's coming back, actually, which is good news. I'm behind. I need to catch up. But yeah, I thought she was very good in American Horror Story, and I think she's very good here too. Sort of acting-wise, I think she's probably the best of the three. She gets some difficult things to work with, and she handles them very, very well. I believed her character. I believed this nun in training, as we see her. Sort of somebody who's waiting to take that next step with her life. She conveys that really well. As does Demian Bashir's father Burke. He has to be quite imposing with sort of things he does. He needs to be. He's a man that knows what he's doing. He's experienced this sort of thing before, and he's got to be confident with the things that he's doing. He's got to be the kind of person we would imagine sent into this kind of awful situation, and he is. He does feel like a genuine character a lot of the time, and when he gets scared, it's for very good reason. There's one particularly horrifying moment involving a coffin that just really, really works because of how well he performs it. Star of the whole thing, character-wise, though, is Frenchie. Frenchie is a character who is actually a bit of the comic relief in this. So I wasn't expecting to have a comedic character. And it's not like he's there just to tell jokes, but he's much more light-hearted in his approach. And quite a lot of the comedy comes from how he's reacting to the things that he's seeing. Because of the three leads in this, of the three main characters, his character, Frenchie, is the one that's the least equipped to handle everything that's happening. He's the least familiar with it all. He's not up on the things that the other two are. So the slightest little thing really terrifies him. He's essentially the audience, in a way. He's the one going, what the hell is going on here now? whereas the other two can't really play up to that as much, but he does, and he does a really good job with it. His character is fun as well. He starts off a little bit annoying, like you think he's just going to be there to kind of hit on Farmiga's character, which he does early on, but he gets a lot better as things go on. And yeah, by the end of it, he was, I think, my favourite character in it. On to the problems with The Nun then. Number one is its pacing, because my goodness, this movie is slow. It's very, very slow, more slow than it needed to be. And I think there's a misconception somewhere that just because a movie is slow, it automatically means it's bad. And I don't agree with that. I think sometimes movies can be slow if, when things pick up, if when you get to the end of the movie, you can understand why they were taking their time. If it made sense that the build-up was a little more slow-paced than what came afterwards, that kind of slow is forgivable because it's building. The Nun, however, it doesn't really feel like that. There are moments where it almost feels like the Nun is at a standstill. Like, it's not moving forward, something's holding it back, and it's probably just because it's trying to fill out the runtime. And just to clarify, it's not all the way through it's like this, but there were numerous times where it just felt like the film was killing time rather than moving on to the next part of its story. And then the scares. This isn't that scary a film. As I mentioned earlier with the sound, there are bits that are very ominous, there are bits that made me feel uncomfortable, but when it comes to actual jump scares, like for me it was far too low on the ground because so many of them were painfully predictable. I think there were two jump scares that got me, and one, amusingly, was the one in the trailer. It's the one where she turns around and the nun's behind her, and she stares at her, and then another nun comes flying out towards the side. That one really got me, despite the fact that I'd seen the trailer, so maybe I just forgot about it, but I was annoyed that I jumped so much at that. And there was one other moment as well, which I won't spoil because it wasn't in the trailers, but that other one worked because it came out of nowhere. It wasn't signposted. It was just in the middle of something happening, and then the jump scare came along. So ones like that, they really do get me, because as I said, I'm a coward. Jump scares will get me, but not when I know that they're coming. There are so many of them in The Nun that basically should have had a 3-second countdown on just to say, the jump scare's coming, a bit like this. Boo. It's a real problem in these sort of movies when you know that they're coming. When you know a jump scare's coming, and when it's done so obviously, it's done in the cliched ways, like the camera will pan around and you just know they're going to be behind them. It's that sort of thing that really doesn't help this out. These shouldn't be predictable. These should have you on the edge of your seat and have original scares in. And this is quite lacking in that regard. And the last act really is where this lost me in a lot of ways. Because for me, the best sort of horrors are the ones that don't show too much, that don't reveal too much about what's going on. And I guess this one was always going to have a bit of a problem because it's a prequel. It's setting up how Valak came to be, to a degree. So it was always going to show a lot more than the other ones did, but it's kind of to the detriment of not only Valak, but to the movie itself, because a lot of it just doesn't work. That last act throws so much at the screen that it stops being anywhere near scary. We get snakes. We get a whole sequence that just looks like a more sinister scene from Batman Begins. If you've seen the movie, you'll probably know which one I mean. It involves lots of people standing in a room, reminding me of Batman Begins. And we get the actual blood of Jesus Christ thrown in. And there's a line in this, with the whole speech, where that has to be delivered sincerely, that they have the blood of Jesus Christ. And it just sounds so ridiculous and over the top that it just took me out of it. And where Valak comes from as well. Like we see early on, there's a hole in the ground that the evil emerges from, which just made me think of the Hellmouth. And it's never good to make the audience compare something to something as great as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because it's going to pale into comparison. So yeah, while I get that this was a prequel, we had to learn more, I just wish it had shown a little bit more restraint. Because when that third act comes along, we go from a slow build to just all out insanity, and it doesn't feel like there was a natural progression there. It just kind of builds slowly, and then, yep, everything's mental now. And it didn't quite work for me in that regard. But I did enjoy The Nun. I don't think it's a terrible movie. I think it's a fairly good one. Like, I had a good time with certain aspects of it. I just had some problems. The ending, which I won't talk about because it is spoilers, I did really like. It ties back into the original Conjuring in quite a good way, but I won't say any more than that, other than to say that I really did appreciate that aspect of it. But yeah, on the whole, this isn't one of my favourite Conjuring movies. I may do a ranking video of them at some point, but yeah, it's certainly bottom tier, but that doesn't mean it's a bad film. It's certainly worth checking out if you're a horror fan. Just be prepared for the fact that it takes quite a while for things to get going. I'm going to give The Nun a 7 out of 10. Have you seen The Nun yet? If so, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And what's your favourite Conjuring movie as well? Let me know that too. Do hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I appreciate every single person that does. And thank you to everybody that's been commenting on the videos as well, because that is kind of the most fun part for me on this, is interacting with people. So keep doing that. Look out for more reviews coming soon. My Predator review will be a little bit late because I won't be around to watch it as soon as it comes out. So it's going to be about 5-6 days after it comes out, which, judging by kind of the reception it's getting, may not be worth the wait, but we'll see. If you're a fan of Buffy, look out for another instalment of Episode by Episode. That'll be up on Monday, I believe. That's the second half of Season 3 I'll be talking about, so do check that out. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next video.